he very much wanted me to write this book. He said, if you don't write it, somebody else will, and probably get it all wrong.
Winning awards is supposed to mean safety, validation, proof that the struggle was worth it. But sometimes, the applause only hides the damage underneath, while the world celebrated her voice. If you ever asked what it cost her to keep singing Doc to, millions. Her songs sounded bright, comforting, even hopeful. They played on radios during dark times and filled living rooms with warmth. Yet behind that familiar sound lived a woman carrying silence heavier than fame. For decades, she performed happiness while privately battling exhaustion, control, and a sadness she never felt allowed to explain. She was managed, marketed, and reshaped by men who saw her talent as a product, not a person. Decisions were made for her. Boundaries were tested, credit was taken, and speaking out often felt more dangerous than staying quiet. So she smiled, she sang, and she survived. Her personal life reflected the same pattern. Love existed, but honesty was complicated. Her marriage slowly bent under pressure from unspoken fears and compromises she believed would hurt more if voiced aloud to the public. She appeared steady, composed, and fulfilled. Inside, she was unraveling in pieces no spotlight could ever reveal. Then, late in life, something frightening happened. The very voice that defined her, the one that carried her through war, fame, and heartbreak, nearly disappeared. At an age when most legends rest on memory, she faced the terrifying possibility of silence. Only then did people begin asking questions they should have asked decades earlier. Who protected her? Who listened? And what happens when someone spends a lifetime giving comfort without ever receiving it? Her story doesn't begin with fame. It begins in a small home, during uncertain times where kindness mattered more than money, and a voice was quietly learning how to heal others, long before it learned how to protect itself. She entered the world during a time when security was fragile and futures felt uncertain. Born into a working-class household, stability came not from wealth but from responsibility. Both parents worked long hospital shifts, caring for strangers while trying to keep their own family afloat. Money was tight, comfort was modest, but compassion filled the space where luxury never existed. From an early age, she learned how to observe people, how pain looked when it wasn't spoken, how exhaustion settled into quiet routines. Those lessons shaped her far more deeply than she realized at the time. Music entered her life naturally, not as ambition, but as atmosphere. Singing wasn't encouraged for success. It was encouraged for joy. Her family believed in imagination, especially when the world outside offered little to smile about. Even her name reflected that. Spirit, playful, invented, and full of hope. Her mother, trained in classical music, noticed something rare early on. There was emotion in the child's voice, not just sound, feeling. By the time she was old enough to stand before family gatherings, she was already performing, already learning how to hold attention and connect with listeners. Those small moments mattered. Each song strengthened confidence piece by piece. Each smile from a listener reinforced a quiet truth. Her voice could change how people felt. Outside their home, the world was growing darker. War loomed closer. Anxiety spread through streets and households alike. Inside, singing became more than entertainment. It became reassurance, routine, and emotional shelter. Without realizing it, she was preparing for a role far larger than childhood. Performances. She was learning how to carry other people's fear and how to turn it into something gentle. That emotional responsibility would follow her for the rest of her life. Everything changed when the world fell into war. Britain braced itself, and fear became a daily presence. Air raid sirens replaced routine. Nights were filled with uncertainty. And somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, a child's voice became a source of calm. Her first public performances weren't glamorous, they were necessary. Singing for people who were scared, exhausted, and grieving she didn't fully understand. The weight of it then, only that people needed her voice. Radio opened the door. What began as small appearances quickly grew into something much larger. Letters poured in from across the country. Soldiers wrote from distant fronts. Families wrote from shelters, all saying the same thing. Her voice helped them breathe again. She performed during bombings. She sang in underground shelters while walls shook and lights flickered. At an age when most children are protected from fear, she stood inside it, offering comfort instead. The country embraced her. Media gave her nicknames. Comparisons followed. Praise came quickly, but behind it was pressure no child should ever carry. She was no longer just a performer. She was a symbol of hope. Her schedule filled rapidly. Concerts, broadcasts, tours, hundreds of performances before she even reached her teens. Travel through blackout zones, singing through exhaustion, smiling through fear. Yet at home, she remained grounded, helping with chores, listening more than speaking, absorbing the emotional weight of the adults around her. Those years shaped her profoundly. They taught discipline, resilience, and empathy. But they also taught her something dangerous, that her value came from what she gave, not what she needed. It was a lesson she would spend decades trying to unlearn. Victory didn't bring relief the way she expected. When the war ended, the world rushed forward and left her behind. Almost overnight, the same institutions that had relied on her voice no longer needed it. She was still a child when she was told she was no longer relevant. The explanation was simple, almost careless. She belonged to wartime, and wartime was over. She disappeared from the spotlight quietly. No farewell, no gratitude, just silence. The applause that had once followed her everywhere vanished, replaced by an invisible wall of indifference. For a child who had spent her life soothing fear and uncertainty, The world's sudden rejection felt sharper than any criticism could have been. Those years were some of the hardest. She studied, auditioned, faced rejection after rejection, too. Young, not the right image, not what the industry wanted anymore. Depression followed, hidden carefully behind politeness and professionalism. She learned to carry disappointment without showing it, a skill that would become second nature. But she didn't stop working. Films continued, television followed. Slowly, she rebuilt her presence, not as a novelty, but as a professional with purpose. What shocked people most was her discipline, even as a teenager. She showed maturity beyond her years, long shoots, harsh conditions, demanding roles. She endured it all quietly. Those years reshaped her. They hardened her resolve but softened her expectations. She learned that success could vanish overnight and that survival required reinvention. It was the moment she stopped believing the industry would protect her. From then on, she protected herself. Every decision, every role, every appearance became an act of self-preservation, a way to reclaim control in a world that had once discarded her. Music eventually pulled her back into the center, not through explosion, but persistence. Early recordings didn't dominate charts, but they laid the foundation. She learned studios, producers, songwriting, control. Every note, every session was a step toward reclaiming agency over her own. Career daughter breakthrough came gradually. A song here, a hit there. Each success reinforced something important. She could adapt. By the mid-1950s, audiences recognized her voice again, this time not as a child, but as an artist. Charts climbed. Television appearances multiplied. And with each success, her confidence grew, along with a quiet understanding of the industry's fickleness. She experimented with languages, French, later Italian, and Spanish. It was risky, conventional even, but it worked. Instead of limiting her reach, it expanded it. Europe embraced her. Critics took notice. She was no longer a novelty. She was a global talent. Unlike many artists, she refused to stay boxed into one image. She crossed borders, cultural, musical, and emotional. That versatility protected her when trends shifted. Behind the scenes, inequality remained. Pay gaps, different standards, expectations placed on appearance rather than ability. She documented it quietly, choosing strategy over confrontation. Knowing timing and consistency mattered more than outbursts. Her biggest global moment arrived unexpectedly. A song she initially doubted became an international phenomenon. It crossed oceans, topped charts, and redefined her career. Invitations poured in, television history was made. But success didn't erase the past, it complicated it. Fame amplified everything. The pressure, scrutiny, and isolation. Still, she stood tall. She had survived invisibility. She had endured doubt, and now, she was impossible to ignore. Her reinvention was not just a career move. It was a statement of resilience. Some moments define careers, others define character. During a live television performance, a simple, human gesture became historic. A touch that challenged unspoken rules. A moment that revealed how fragile progress truly was. It seemed small to some, radical to others. But for her, it was instinct, integrity, and conscience converging in a fleeting second. The backlash came fast, sponsors panicked, executives demanded changes. Fear spoke louder than principle. She refused. Threats followed. Hate mail arrived. Security became necessary. Yet she stood by her choice, not as a public statement, but as a reflection of who she was. That courage repeated itself quietly throughout her career, turning down roles, rejecting exploitation, refusing to trade dignity for opportunity. She endured uncomfortable encounters that many women were taught to normalize. She walked away. She stayed silent, not because she agreed, but because survival demanded it. Awards came. Recognition followed, but she noticed disparities. Even in celebration, inequality remained. At one point, she made a bold decision, refusing to attend a major awards ceremony in protest of unfair treatment. It wasn't widely publicized, but it mattered. She wasn't loud, she wasn't confrontational, but she was consistent. That consistency carved space for those who came after her. Her courage didn't rely on headlines, it relied on persistence, subtlety, and unwavering principles. Through decades of scrutiny, pressure, and expectation, she demonstrated that true strength often isn't dramatic. It's quiet, it's steady, it's the courage to stand by yourself when the world demands you conform. And in that quiet defiance, she rewrote the rules for those who would follow. Marriage offered stability and complexity. Her partner became both husband and manager, merging personal and professional lines in ways both supportive and confining. Together, they built success. Together, they carried pressure. Over time, distance replaced intimacy. Schedules replaced conversations. They stayed married. They raised children, but emotional separation grew quietly, like an unspoken current pulling them apart. Motherhood added another layer of responsibility. Touring meant absence. Success demanded sacrifice. She carried guilt constantly, torn between stages and school events, applause and bedtime routines. She tried to do everything. Often, she felt she failed at both. The demands of career and family left little room for self-care, reflection, or indulgence. And yet, she persisted, choosing endurance over complaint. Loss came later, and with it, reflection. Regret softened into understanding, but it never fully disappeared. In interviews and memoirs, she spoke honestly about love missed, time lost, and choices shaped by fear rather than desire. Her confessions resonated deeply. They weren't dramatic or sensationalized. They were human. Even in success, she carried the echoes of what she could not reclaim. Absence, in its many forms, left marks she could never fully erase. Yet through it all, She modeled a subtle truth: life is rarely perfect, and love, even when complicated, is worth honoring. Her story reminds us that behind every achievement, behind every standing ovation, lies a personal narrative of compromises, choices, and quiet regrets. And it is in sharing that story honestly that she gave others permission to acknowledge their own. Behind her dazzling success lives silence, shadows the public never saw. Encounters crossed boundaries, invitations that weren't professional, power dynamics that left no safe response. She navigated a world that often rewarded charm and compliance over talent and integrity. She escaped situations quietly. She said no when she could. She stayed silent when she had to, knowing that speaking out could cost opportunities she couldn't afford to lose. Each compromise, each hidden injustice, left a mark on her. Those experiences accumulated. They shaped her depression. They built a guarded nature. They created a careful public image, polished to perfection, masking pain she could not yet express. Therapy came late, after decades of enduring in silence. But when it came, it changed everything. It gave her language for the pain she had carried. Alone for so long, it helped her name the experiences that had haunted her dreams. It gave her strategies to protect herself emotionally, to set boundaries she had once feared to assert. For the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge the cost of survival, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the moments of quiet despair behind closed doors. She admitted that the price of a career built on public adoration had often been private sacrifice, sometimes too heavy to bear alone. Even as she shared pieces of her story, she remained discreet. Her courage wasn't performative, it was persistent. She survived a system designed to silence her, a world where talent was celebrated but the person behind it was often invisible. Her endurance became part of her legacy. Every song, every performance, every graceful gesture in the spotlight was informed by survival, a testament to resilience, strategy, and quiet defiance. When trends changed, she adapted again. Smaller venues, theater, cabaret, reinvention. Without desperation, each shift was deliberate, a way to keep her art alive. Even when the industry seemed to overlook her, Broadway welcomed her. Television remembered her. Younger audiences discovered her. She navigated generational change with grace, reminding the world that talent doesn't age the way trends do. Her performances became bridges across decades, proof that artistry can transcend popularity. Even into her 80s, she performed with poise and vitality. Viral moments reminded the world of her reach, showing that her influence spanned generations. People marveled not just at her voice, but at the consistency of her craft, the precision of her delivery, and the warmth she conveyed even after decades in the spotlight. Health challenges came, frightening ones. The threat of losing her voice returned. But she recovered, approaching each setback with the same discipline and courage she had cultivated. Throughout her life, each obstacle became another layer of resilience. She demonstrated that passion and dedication could survive fear, exhaustion, and uncertainty. Still standing, still singing, still inspiring, her career refused to fade because she refused to let it. Because she understood that art was not a reflection of public approval, but a declaration of persistence and self-respect. Her story shows that reinvention isn't about chasing relevance. It's about honoring your craft, adapting wisely, and holding space for your voice. Literally and metaphorically, in a world that constantly shifts today, her legacy isn't just in chart numbers or awards. It lives in resilience, integrity, and courage, qualities that outlast applause. She gave comfort during war, challenged injustice quietly, endured pain without losing her fundamental kindness. Her voice mattered, but so did her choices. She navigated a world that often demanded compromise, yet she remained principled. Every performance, every interview, every refusal to compromise her dignity added to a quiet but indelible impact. When the world finally listened, it realized something important. She didn't just sing history, she survived it. Each note carried not only melody, but decades of perseverance, bravery, and lessons learned. Her life was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for endurance, reinvention, and quiet defiance. Even today, her story resonates. For aspiring artists, it is a guide. For those who have endured injustice, it is a mirror. For anyone striving to remain true to themselves in a demanding world, it is proof that integrity outlives fame. She reminds us that survival is not passive. It requires courage, patience, and consistency. It demands choices that are sometimes invisible to the public, but monumental in their consequences. And in the end, it is those choices, more than accolades or public recognition, that define a life worth remembering. Her music may eventually stop, the applause may fade, but the values she embodied, resilience, grace, and integrity, remain timeless. And that is her enduring gift. Not just the songs we remember, but the strength she modeled, the standards she set, and the quiet yet unwavering legacy she leaves behind.